What's up, everybody? Soxwayouts back with another episode of Highrise City. Last episode, we worked on getting a lot of things prepped for the managers, making sure the happiness of the engineers was taken care of. A few episodes ago, we got a comment from Luke Buttles. Love the series. Could you go over making the bridge? I had problems with it and need to figure it out. Thank you in advance. We're going to definitely go over that. We did some playing around, and I think we figured out the solution to the problem all of us were having. So as we jump into it, let's just start making a bridge. We're going to try to cross the river here. At first it's saying water contact. We can't do that. So let's grab the road again. We'll page up a little bit. We'll try to get it a little bit higher so it doesn't touch the water. And we'll see what that does. We'll connect the road across. Once we can get the pitch correct, it's a little bit of a hassle to begin with here. But once we get the height correct for the two sides of the river, we are able to create a bridge across, but it doesn't look good. You can see there's like these humps in it or hills in it, the incline there. It just doesn't come out very smooth. So the thing that you want to do in these situations, on the left there where you select the road type, we want to go over to ignore landscape. And by having that selected, we can start making clean slopes. And you can see here, they look great actually. Once we get the road laid down, it is a perfect slope from that height of the bridge down to the ground level. No longer has the weird hump that the road has there. So some of the things that we do to recreate the road, the nodes are too large in this game when you first lay down a road. It expects that entire road to be, you know, it's a one entity, so it doesn't split it up for you. So what we do here is kind of show a way of doing that. Another thing that I complain about is I wish the ignore landscape would stay selected. Every time we click away from the roads, it goes away and goes back to the default setting, which is kind of annoying. So some of the things we're doing here is we made the bridge and we deleted it, and it all goes away again. We've learned that already. I decided to make my own bridge here, so we delete that original one that we had. We pause the game since we broke the connection to the two sides of the river. So here we're going to start off by, going out this way, making sure that it's selected to ignore landscape, and then raise the terrain or the height of the road where we want it. We're going to put that one down, and then we're going to cross the river. We're going to do our best to cross the river and try not to make you dizzy in the process here. So here we go. We're going to pull it across, slide the camera around, try to make this as straight as possible, and then raise it a little bit. But the first attempt just doesn't really work as well as we'd like it to, but it gives us a start. So as we dive underneath the water, you can see it did slope down to the level of the terrain on the right side of the river. So now we're gonna add a temporary road in here. And this is a trick that I've started to realize works pretty good in this game. So we're kind of forcing it to split those two nodes apart. So when we demolish it now, it keeps that existing slope that we thought was good. That first slope's good enough for us. It's the way we want it. So let's keep that one. Let's get this across here. Again, we'll have to hit ignore landscape because we went to a different menu. And then we'll raise the height over here to try to get a nice level bridge completely across the water, and then a perfect slope into that existing road. Just like that, we solved it. We can make nice bridges. We'll get rid of that node. Everything turns out, wait a minute, it didn't turn out right. It looks like making that connection kind of messed us up a little bit. It gave this weird hump here. It changed the roads even though it shouldn't have. So to get around that again, we rinse and repeat, and this time we put the node or the temporary road in a position where there was no slope change. There was nothing going on with the road except for a straight line. So the game was more happy with us doing it that way. We delete the left side of it. We're able to remake the slope. Turns out great. Once we remember to hit the ignore landscape button, it all comes out and it works out pretty nice. And I'm happy with that. It could have been a little more straightforward and easier to understand, but at least we have a solution now and we can make bridges that look nice in this game. Last episode, we also talked about possibly getting rid of some of our production lines and relying on trade more than producing them ourselves. So we're going to dive into that next. I was taking a look at some of the goods that we're producing and seeing, where are we at? Are we good with that? Do we want to get rid of them? Kind of starting over with everything we're doing in trade right now and removing some of the things we're selling, some of the things we're purchasing, and just starting over, thinking about it a little differently. We talked about getting rid of wood, but I also don't think that I want to make any more farms at this point. There's a lot of farms. Maybe if we expand to a lot more tiles, I have no idea how many tiles we get. So there's a lot of things going through my head where I don't want to keep adding farms. I'm done adding farms. Let's try to use trade to produce some of those goods, or to get goods instead of producing them ourselves. At least that's the thought process I'm going with here. So logs is the first thing we're going to do. We're going to make it send us the maximum if it can. Also, we're already doing bread because we had a shortage of bread, so we're already buying that, so that's good. But we're going to add vegetables, so we're also going to add fruit into this as well. and maybe find some other things, possibly fish and get rid of some of the fisheries because we're needing more of that already. Constant balance of resources in this game. That's what I'm learning from it. I've said that probably 80 times in this series already. And as I was going through this process, I was trying to pay attention to how much each of them cost. The vegetables, 156 per unit. The lumber is 99. The fruit is 276. So it keeps going up. Fish, I don't remember what the cost was. We thought about adding grain, but realized we don't need to produce any more grain. We're doing pretty good in that aspect. But yeah, fish is going to be another thing that we did want to purchase so we can get rid of some of those buildings. 180, not too bad, but it's definitely a balance. You'll see later on our $2.2 million kind of disappears. We made some mistakes. Some mistakes were made, but yeah, we get something going here with trying to remove some of these buildings, trying to remove the wood and the lumberjacks and just see what happens. One of the things we also wanted to keep doing is selling some of our excess bricks and some of the excess steel as well, because there is an excess when we're not building. When the game's just stagnant, we definitely have extra material that we don't really need. So now that we have all of those goods coming in via trade, it's time to get rid of the lumberjack yards, and it might have been a mistake. It might have been a mistake. Some learning was done in this episode. We've realized that some things are good to trade, some things are not, and you'll see here in a minute. So this section here, we're going to reorganize our steel industry, the entire iron industry that we created a few episodes ago. I want to produce more. There's a lot of need for that in some of the buildings that we're going to be using. And right away at this point, I couldn't build buildings because there wasn't enough lumber coming in. It was bringing in about 150 a week, and we're using that on other things like coal and furniture and just some of the other production lines that we had out there. So I went ahead and probably went overboard, but I added a ton of lumber back in, and I snuck it on this small road so it didn't take up a big footprint. So then we jump back over. Now that we can build because we're producing logs again, we start moving in some of the buildings and getting them reorganized to free up the natural resource on the right side of the screen right now to be able to have more steel. And to get more steel, we need more iron. So the iron natural resource is in this area. Like I said, we're going to free up that space to be able to put more of those. And while we're doing that, there was a little bit of back and forth of expansion. We're starting to add some managers. You can see we're up to 7,000, trying to throw them in this area just to see how many we could get. The next milestone was 25,000 of them. So there's a lot of growth that has to happen to get us to unlock the next things. So a lot of playing around with waiting for resources to come in to be able to build the buildings. One of the things I would say, if I was you, I would buy more warehouses earlier on. I haven't been doing that as much. I've been forgetting about them. It does expand the capacity of all of your resources. So if you are producing a lot of things and just letting the game run so that you have a lot of resources to use and start building and expanding with, that's a good way to do that because you don't get capped out by having only 300 capacity or 400 capacity. I bumped it up all the way. I think it's to 900 by adding a large warehouse in recently. So after getting the resources back into a place that felt good with some trade, with some adding the logs back in, increasing our steel productivity, it still wasn't enough. I pretty much maxed out the amount of iron we could extract from this area of town that we have opened up, or this part of the map. It's just not enough. So we're producing as much steel as we can, but there's a lot of waiting, a lot of letting the game run cycles of all of the resources being, extracted and then turned into steel and then turned into steel beams, or turned into iron then steel beams. Just a lot of waiting. This was probably the longest episode when it came to gameplay time that I've made in this series so far, and not a lot to show for it. A lot of what we're doing is just trying to populate this little rectangle area with residents, and then to the left of it, offices. So it was a struggle. Honestly, it was a little boring. If we're doing a full review of the game like I plan to do with this playthrough, this part of the game I do find a little bit boring. I guess there is some detailing you can do, kind of like in City Skylines. I could go around and detail areas. Not really sure that that's my thing in this game. I do like the managing of resources, but it seemed to be a little bit of a drag. As you can see, I'm just sitting here waiting. The camera hasn't moved in a while, waiting for enough steel beams to come in so I can build more buildings. Let's jump forward a little bit. Jumping forward quite a bit, we did hit 25,000. These are the things that we opened up. We have the grape farm, a wine press, can factory. We got an iron melt, the the big iron melt, the big glass melt, the big steel melt, and the big lumberjack yard. Next, we get to unlock investors. So we need another, looks like 20,000 managers to unlock the investors, universities, the giant warehouse, some copper stuff, some semiconductors, electric factory, gold factory or gold mine. A lot of cool things coming in the rest of this game. The rinse and repeat of it seems a little tedious. Maybe there's too many resources. We'll see where it ends. I'm enjoying it, wanting to get to the end of it though at this point. Just kind of see where it is because my brain wants to start over already. Having fun with it, but I definitely am in start over, see what we can do, and really try to enjoy this game on a second playthrough. But we'll finish this one before we get to that. Again, I'm Socksway Up. Thanks for hanging out. Sorry for the rants. I'll catch you on the next episode.